Hey guys, how's everything going? Welcome to this first episode of Introduction to Computers. Today we're going to cover pretty much, you've got a new computer, either you've ordered a computer through a retailer, Amazon, eBay, something along those lines, or you picked one up from someone secondhand on Facebook Marketplace or Craigslist, something like that. You've got everything at your house now and you're getting ready to set up your new computer. The first thing you want to do is identify what it is that you will be plugging into your computer and where it needs to plug into at. I'm going to assume that you have a mouse and keyboard, and it will either have a USB plug like this, where it is a rectangular, or you will have a small circular plug similar to the one that you see at the top here. This one is colored both green and purple because you could plug in either a mouse or a keyboard to it. Depending on the age of your computer may have two of these. One will be green, the other will be purple. One will be for mouse and one for keyboard. Green is for keyboard, purple for mouse, if I remember correctly. It has been a while since I've used those, so don't hold me to that. Your mouse and keyboard would have the same plugs if that's the ones that you picked up, and then the colors will match the two that are on the back of there. The other thing is, though, is if you have the rectangle plug, similar to this one, then you will go to any of the plugs on the back here that match that and plug those in. Those will be completely rectangle, top and bottom, and basically on all four sides will be flat on that one. That is not to be confused with something like an HDMI cable or a DisplayPort cable, which is not flat on those two sides. Those we will get into in a minute. Once you have those things plugged in, you will want to plug in speakers if you have them. Those will plug into the back of your computer close to the top. There will be three small circular 1/4-inch jacks back there. One will be for microphone, one will be for speakers, and one will be for auxiliary input. You will use the one in the middle. It will usually be green, and that will be the one that you use for your speakers. The one that is pink, usually pink, is used for your mouse. That is the first one furthest to the other side of the board. The last one that is closer to this side of the board, of the computer rather, will be your auxiliary port. Those can be black, or they might be gray or orange or some other color. It depends on your board. The next thing that you might want to look into will be your monitor. Now, depending on the age of your monitor and the age of your computer, you may see one of several different types of plugs. You may see a plug like this that is blue. Sometimes these are black, but they are not quite rectangular. They have a flat side on the top and the bottom, and then the two sides are slightly slanted. Now, there are 3 rows of pins inside of this, and it looks like this here, hoping that you can see that. Or another type of plug that you might see is one similar to this. I've seen these, the cords come in on these either in white or in black, but usually on the back of the motherboard they are either blue or white. But I've seen these come in either black or white in the cords as well. Now, this particular cord has 2 sets of 9 pins here. You have a set of 9 here and a set of 9 here. And then on the far side you have one pin that is like a flat pin. Let's see if you can see that. Now this one can also have another variation where these 2 sets of pins is just one big set of pins, and there's more pins in between them. That is called a dual link DVI plug, and depending on your board, you may or may not see one of those on the back of there. For a newer system, you may see an HDMI port. These are flat on the bottom. They're sort of flat on the top, and the 2 sides have notches on each side of them, right here and right here. You can see that. Alternatively, it may have what is called a DisplayPort cord. Now that looks very similar to an HDMI cord, except for it's flat on 3 of the sides, and only one side has a notch sticking out of it. And this one is more so rounded outwards than inwards like the HDMI. You can see that or not. It looks like so. So if you're looking at the back of your computer and you see a slot that looks like an HDMI slot, but one side is completely flat, do not try to plug an HDMI cord into there, because it will not work. We also want to pay attention to where we are plugging in our monitor. Depending on what system you have, whether it be an Intel system or an AMD system, you may have onboard graphics. What that means is that your processor can display an image without the use of what is called a graphics card. There are some AMD CPUs that have those. Those usually, the model number on those usually end with a G. So 3200G, 3400G, 2200G, so on and so forth. On Intel, they mostly have those in them. So if you plug in up here at the top, in any port up here that is either an HDMI, a display, DVI, or a VGA cable, any one of these into any of those ports on one of those systems that do not have onboard graphics, then that will not do anything on your monitor. Underneath this panel, there will be several slots down here with different things that can also be plugged in. Maybe. Some systems don't actually have this. If they have onboard graphics and they were intended as an office PC and not a gaming PC or not anything rendering PC or anything of that nature, they may not even have a graphics card in them if it was just only for office works. So that may be the only choice that you have, is to plug in up there. However, if you do have options down here on the bottom underneath that, then you want to use those even if the ones at the top do work, because this will plug directly into what is called your graphics card, and that will give you a much better picture on your screen. It'll let you have a higher resolution. It'll let you get a more crisp resolution. And if you ever do anything that is graphically intensive, such as playing video games or watching very large 8K movies, it will run those much smoother. Now, some systems do not have Ethernet ports, which is the cord that looks like a telephone cord, but much wider. Not all systems will have those on the main board, or if it's an older system, they may not be as fast as some of the newer ones of those, so they may have an Ethernet port down here as well in these slots. And if that's the case, you'll want to use the one down here because they most likely added a adapter in for a faster Ethernet port, which will give you better, more stable connection to your internet. You may have a printer that comes in with a port like this, or you may have one, depending on the age, that is what is known as a serial port, and it will look something similar to this cable, but it will be wider than this cable, and the pins will be laid out differently, but it'll look very similar to this. If that be the case, you're in for a lot more than what this video is going to cover. I'm not going to try to get too in-depth on serial port printers and really, really old stuff like that, but just know that if you're buying something used, especially right now with the way that everything is in the market today, you very well may be getting something with that, because all of the current stuff is just really hard to get, and unless you want to pay an outrageously large amount of money for it, the supply for everything is really low, the demand for everything is really high, and there's just no way around that. So what a lot of people are doing is they are taking older systems and reusing those and selling those at a somewhat better price than, it's not a good price, all of its old stuff, but it's going to be at a somewhat better price than what you might get for some of the newer stuff. I'm not going to cover too much of that though, because what I want to focus on right now is just getting somebody up and running, and let's hope that you didn't run into anything like that, and I want this video to actually be relevant once supply catches back up with everybody and we can actually get new parts again. If anyone is having issues with older equipment and it doesn't look anything like what we're dealing with today, let me know in the comments section below, and we will go over those as best as I can in the comments. And if it becomes too big of a thing where it takes a really long time to deal with it, I will just make a special video just for that subject if that's something that a lot of people are having issues. Okay, so now you may have something that looks like this. As you can see, I've installed several programs on here that didn't originally come with Windows 10. Depending on where you received your particular computer from, you may have other programs. There may be some HP something programs or ASUS programs or Dell programs that are installed on your computer if your computer that you got is marketed as one of those computers. We're going to assume that you have a basic nothing on your computer, you'll go to the only available browser that you have, which is Microsoft Edge. Now, this one has just recently updated from the original Edge to the new version of Edge, which basically makes it look like Chrome. There is a website that I like to go to called Ninite. It's ninite.com. This website will let you pick a bunch of stuff for your computer and just get it installed. What we have right now is we have the ability to pick several different things and get them installed very quickly without having to go through a bunch of different steps going to each one of these apps, individual web pages, and getting them installed. So what I want to suggest is picking up something like Libreoffice. You could also pick up OpenOffice. I'm not going to really cover that one this time, but Libreoffice, both of those are very powerful office suites that will help you to read and edit Microsoft Office documents, Excel sheets, spreadsheets, or presentations through PowerPoint without actually having to have those programs. Now, these will lack some of the more advanced features and some of the more obscure features that may or may not be used very often, so take that with a grain of salt. But for basic editing of documents and Excel sheets, this will pretty much cover most of everything that you need. 7-Zip, I like to pick that up. Under security here, if you are running Windows 10, make sure that you have the Windows Defender built-in antivirus turned on and ignore everything that is in this list. It's not going to be better than what you already have. This is free virus protection versus free virus protection. It's not going to be better. These are mostly either trying to sell you the full versions of these programs or just really extensive overheads that's not really going to give you that much benefit anyways. I do use Malwarebytes from time to time as a scanner if I suspect that something is going on with the system, and I will use it to scan that system to find out if there's anything going on with it. But as a stand-in virus protection running all the time, I don't really recommend it. I don't use it. Paint.net is probably one of my favorite programs to use. It's got support for plugins that will completely change the way that you deal with pictures. Krita is good for painting, and whereas Inkscape is good for vector graphics. If you don't know what that is, don't worry about getting Inkscape. If you do know what that is and you want to do vector graphics, Inkscape is where I recommend you going. Runtimes, get every single one of these, period. These will a lot of times be either already installed on your system or they will be installed on your system by another program that you install. Doing this now will save you time later so that you don't have to do that then. And all of these runtimes can be used by multiple programs. Some programs won't use them, some programs will use them, and if they require them, they'll already be installed and you won't have to do that later. I recommend getting these two, K-Lite codec packs and CCCP. Pretty much with those two things, no matter what you get, you will be able to watch it. Your system will come with most of what it needs to play back almost anything. It will have support for all of the most commonly used codecs to compress video files with. Sometimes you may get something, and it may come from your employer even, as like a training video that they send you a link to, or they tell you to download this and play this on your computer. Sometimes those can be encoded with some obscure codec that was like really good at compressing video, so it got it a really small file so that it could be emailed, but it's hard to play back, and your computer may not just natively have that. These two things will have all of those in there and make that super easy for you to do. I recommend TerraCopy under Utilities. It gives a lot of added options whenever you are copying files. You can check a button that will verify the files. You can have it pause and then restart, and then it can queue up multiple different transfers, and then once one finishes, it'll start the next. It's just really good at what it does, and I like it a lot better than just the default. Not that you can't use the default, but this will help you at some point. It might not help you every time that you do it, but the one time that it does help you, you will be glad that you had it. I do recommend grabbing Notepad++. This allows you to have many other tabs open, much like in your browser. Whenever you have multiple websites open and different tabs on one browser, This will allow you to have multiple text files open on different tabs on one text editor, even if you're not using it for actual coding or anything like that, and you're not using any of the features that highlight syntax or anything of that nature. This will still be something that is useful if you ever have to have multiple text documents open at one time. Web browsers, let's move on along. Pick any one of these here that you like. Edge, this is the update to Edge. What you're seeing right now, Edge looking like, is the new update of Edge. This is not what Edge originally looks like on the older versions of Windows. If your Edge already looks like this, you're already updated. Firefox, Chrome, pick one of those aside from Edge. If you like Edge, by all means, stick with Edge. You don't like Edge. I don't like Edge. Nobody likes Edge. Don't stick with Edge. I would stay away from Opera. I'm sorry, you 3 people out there who like Opera. Don't do Opera either. And then click Get Your 99. On this page, it will load up everything and then start downloading the file. Click Open File here, and it will start preparing setup. It'll ask you, do you want to allow this app to make changes? Click Yes. It will then start to download all of those packages, and it will check, which all of my stuff is up to date, so it's not going to actually do anything for me because I just ran this. But it will check each one of these things, and if everything that you have is already updated, it'll skip it. This is also a good way to keep those programs up to date, because when you rerun this, not only does it try to install them, but it also checks the version that you have installed versus what the version is of each of those programs that's the newest, and it will compare the two, and if there's a newer version available, it'll download that one and install it for you. That is setting up your computer, getting everything going, and installing your first couple of programs. One thing that we can do right now is we can take a look at a couple of different browsers since we have them installed. If you open Chrome, you'll notice that it looks very much so like what the new version of Edge looks like. That's because both of these browsers are based off of the Chromium project, which is the base of those browsers. Chromium is actually a standalone browser itself that is free and open source, that was originally started by Google as a way to test and develop stuff for their Chrome browser. Tons of other people can get in, they can contribute to it because it is open source. Microsoft has gotten in there and contributed a bunch of stuff to it, and that's how they ended up basing their Edge browser off of that Chromium project as well. So you'll notice they look very similar, and a lot of the things and settings will look the same, both browsers, whichever one you go to. So if I open Chromium Edge back up and I go into settings here, you'll notice it looks very similar. The main difference here is that Edge has a bunch of Microsoft branding all over it, whereas Chrome has a bunch of Google branding all over it. Firefox will start to look a little bit different as you do it. You'll notice right away that the icons here are a bit different. The tabs up here are still sort of the same. The color scheme's a little bit different. A lot of this, though, you will start looking here and you can go options instead of settings. And this looks a bit different. So it's got the same idea behind all of them. These things are pretty intuitive. Once you get the hang of one or the other, you can pretty much start maneuvering around all of them. Let's open up a new tab here, and let's go to adobe.com. You can go to signatures and go down to Acrobat Reader. Download now. What you want to look at here is next to it, they sneakily added these little check marks over here of other things that they want you to install. McAfee, never do that. You will spend the rest of your life trying to uninstall that, and it will never be uninstalled. Make sure you uncheck all of those and then stick with the one that says Adobe Reader. Once that's done, it'll let you save the file, and then you just run it. You can close your browser out now. This is handy because a lot of times, depending on who your employer may be or who your school may be, they may send you a lot of things that they want you to print out and sign and return to them in the form of a PDF. In order to read those PDF files, you need the Acrobat Reader for that. Opening Libreoffice here, you will see that there are different things here. So Writer, this is going to be LibreOffice's version of Microsoft Word. There's tons of things that you can do here in this. You can put images in, tables in, pretty much all of the basic things that you would do. There are forms, there's a spell checker. It has pretty much all the basic things that you're going to need to write without costing you a subscription to Microsoft Office. Calc, that is going to be their version of Microsoft Excel. Impress Presentation, that is going to be their version of PowerPoint. Base Database here, that is going to be their version of Microsoft Access. Notepad++ is one of the things I told you to download a while ago. Now you can make notes here, and then if you want to, you can go New, and we'll do numbers on this one. It lets you quickly bounce back and forth between things. This also does, like I said, have a ton of other options in here that you may use when writing different codes. This is what TerraCopy looks like. As you can see, I did copy a file from this computer over to my workstation, to the YouTube folder. This was the video that I was working on. What you can do is you can come in here and you can sort through different files and send files that way. Or whenever you get ready to copy files over, whenever you go to paste, it'll ask you, do you want to paste using Explorer or TerraCopy? Then you select TerraCopy and it will give you a window similar to that and let you see what's going on. Krita, in case you guys installed that, will look something like this. And like I said, this is basically for drawing, painting, whatever. I want a new thing, I want it whatever size that is by default, and then you just start painting here. And you can put in different things. I love playing with the gradient tool. You just make all kinds of crazy stuff out of this. And that's pretty much all of the programs that I recommend at first. There will be a lot of more programs that you will get later and some things that you'll want to download after all of this, depending on what you're actually using your computer for. If you're using this for school, if you're using this for work, or if you're using this for, just generally getting around looking for work, or if you're using this for gaming, checking your email or Facebook. There may be other things that you end up downloading, but I think this is a good place to start with. So if you guys like this, go ahead and give this the thumbs up. If there are any questions that you might have, you can leave those in the comments down below. You guys have a wonderful day, and I'll catch you guys in the next video. Take care.